Bom, esse é um evento especial, primeira vez que eu estou fazendo um Hangout on Air, então algo diferente que eu nunca fiz nesse canal. E hoje o que eu quero fazer é falar sobre a Bitwage. Para isso eu tenho dois convidados especiais, o Jonathan Chester, que é o presidente e fundador da Bitwage, e o Fabiano Dias, que é o Head of Operations da América Latina, então responsável por todas as operações aqui na América Latina. E acho que para começar, eu queria convidar o Fabiano a falar um pouco sobre o que é a Bitwage, o que ela faz, a que ela se propõe, qual é o problema que ela resolve. E aí depois a gente vai continuar a conversa em inglês, porque vai ficar mais natural, e aí vamos falar sobre um pouco mais assuntos aí sobre a Bitwage e o mundo do Bitcoin em geral. Então, primeiro, obrigado pela presença dos dois. Thank you, Jonathan, for accepting my invitation. Thank you, Fabiano. E, Fabiano, então, a palavra está contigo. Explica um pouquinho como é que é, o que faz a Bitwage.
Legal, Fernando, obrigado aí pelo espaço também. E a Bitwage, o pessoal conhece como uma plataforma para o profissional que trabalha remoto, receber o seu pagamento, seja do Brasil, ou dos Estados Unidos, da Europa, qualquer uma dessas praças. O que a Bitwage faz? A gente fornece uma conta bancária para esse profissional receber, seja nos Estados Unidos, na Europa, ou na Austrália, no Japão. E o empregador só precisa fazer uma transferência, não precisa fazer conta especial em lugar algum, ele só realiza uma transferência bancária normal e a gente roteia esse dinheiro para a conta do profissional, utilizando Bitcoin, no mesmo dia ou no dia seguinte o pagamento.
E o pagamento, eu sei até, eu falo não apenas como entusiasta da empresa e como alguém que acredita nessa tecnologia, mas também como consumidor. Eu já usei o serviço da Bitwage para um trabalho que eu realizei para uma empresa no exterior, de ensino, de educação, e para mim foi a melhor maneira de conseguir receber como um freelancer, receber de fora, foi usando o serviço da Bitwage. Então eu lembro que o Bitwage, eu como freelancer, eu posso escolher receber tanto na minha moeda local como em Bitcoin, certo?
Perfeito, você pode receber, na verdade você tem uma gama de, aí, você tem ainda o Cloud Saves, né, a gente tem integrado um sistema de Cloud Saves, então você pode receber até em euro, em dólares, mais de 30 moedas como opção, até em outras criptos também.
Ah, com outras criptos também? Que interessante, não sabia.
A demanda é pequena, né, mas tem a opção.
Legal. E é interessante também do ponto de vista não apenas do freelancer que quer receber rapidamente, por quem está pagando no exterior, mas até para o pagador, né? Porque eu lembro que o sistema, para quem realiza pagamentos, por exemplo, uma empresa que contrata, uma empresa de software ou de marketing, de TI, que contrata profissionais em diversas praças, diversas jurisdições. A ferramenta permite que se faça pagamentos facilmente, né? E ela está toda preparada para fazer quase que uma folha de pagamentos global usando o Bitcoin, certo?
Sem dúvida, sem dúvida. O que a gente tem, na verdade, são 3 produtos, né? Tem um invoicing, que é como aquele que você utilizou, você precisa receber, informa a conta bancária para o seu empregador, ele deposita, você recebe. A gente tem o Team Wages para a empresa que precisa pagar, ou seja, a forma reversa. Então, se a empresa tem profissionais aí espalhados ao redor do mundo, é um sistema de folha de pagamento, ele pode alimentar esse sistema com fundo, seja via cartão de crédito, transferência bancária ou Bitcoin, e aí esse pagamento é roteado para todos os colaboradores ou fornecedores dele também. E, por último, a gente tem o Jobs, né? Porque a Bitwage tem como base de clientes principal justamente o freelancer e o trabalhador remoto. Então, a gente quer consolidar, a gente está consolidando o nome como uma ferramenta de auxílio ao trabalhador remoto. Então, a gente adicionou agora para o profissional que tem uma conta Prêmio da Bitwage, você tem o teu sistema de verificação de pagamentos, né? Onde a gente atesta para quem você trabalhou e quanto você recebeu. Agora você tem como provar por A mais B qual foi o teu nível de vínculo com aquela empresa que você trabalhou, certo? E assim como a gente também tem um mural de emprego, onde o profissional premium é recebido com essas vagas por e-mail, a gente tem uma ferramenta de filtro de vagas pela internet, então as vagas que se adequam a você recebe via e-mail. E fora a opção de que também para esse usuário a gente não cobra taxa, tem prioridade de recebimento do pagamento, você vai receber entre 4 e 8 horas, a maioria das vezes recebe no mesmo dia. Então, a ideia é essa. A ideia é que o nome Bitwage ficar consolidado como uma ferramenta de auxílio ao profissional, onde a plataforma de pagamento aí fica sendo só o core em torno dele e o pessoal pode agregar mais valor, né?
Ou seja, para quem tanto para quem quer receber do exterior ou para quem precisa pagar o freelancer no exterior, a Bitwage acaba sendo a forma, por usar a tecnologia do blockchain, do Bitcoin, acaba sendo a forma mais rápida, segura e barata de fazer pagamentos, né?
Sem dúvida, para quem recebe de fora, o que acontece é aquela história, Fernando. Se você hoje o Bitcoin no Brasil é mais caro do que nos Estados Unidos e na Europa, né? Agora por causa dessa insegurança política, a diferença está aqui em torno dos 15%, 20%. Então quem recebe aqui, recebe o dólar hoje, o dólar está com 3,35.
Mais ou menos isso, foi.
Quem está recebendo via Bitwage está recebendo dólar a 3,80, 3,85.
Nossa.
Então é muito
coisas
mais...
do nosso Brasil.
Sim, mas em geral geralmente, por via de regra, boa parte do mês o Bitcoin está 5 a 10% mais alto. Então acaba sendo a forma mais barata e mais rápida de receber hoje.
Legal.
Sim.
Okay, so now we can switch to English, so Jonathan can understand a little bit more. I think he's trying to learn Portuguese, but I think it's restricted to bom dia, tudo bom, right?
No, I can also say obrigado and
okay,
saúde.
Perfect.
Yeah, very important words.
So Jonathan, I think I'm as everybody here knows, people who follows this channel and my writings and activism in Bitcoin knows I'm an enthusiast in this technology. I think it's revolutionary. And when I found out about Bitwage, I was very pleased to know about the service. And as I said, I told here previously, I'm not only an enthusiast on this service, but I'm also a consumer, and it's great to have this kind of problem solved by Bitwage. But since you're the founder, you're the one who started the company, I'd like to ask you, how has the company evolved since it started 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. So 3 years ago. So the company was started by myself and actually a coworker of mine back at Oracle. I used to work at Oracle before this. I was doing sales and he was working on the tech side over there. Mm-hmm. And around that time, I mean, Oracle, I don't know if you know much about it, but it's a very soul-sucking environment. It's not very worth it.
I can understand.
I felt the need to just learn as much as I could while I was in this environment. And during this time, I came across Bitcoin, which this was like the middle of 2013. It was right before the price shot up the first time to over $1,000. And I became very fascinated by the socioeconomic impacts, being able to help people that are unbanked and help people who are getting taken advantage of in the banking sectors, as well, or by the banking sectors rather, as well as the efficiency element, which allows you to move funds faster and cheaper. And so became fascinated, spent a month just going deep into this rabbit hole. I came back out of it and I was this obsessed Bitcoin guy. I'm sure you can relate to this
Of
situation.
course I can. It's a similar experience here.
Yeah. So at the time, now I'm at Oracle, I'm this obsessed Bitcoin guy. I'm always telling people, Bitcoin, you gotta buy Bitcoin, you gotta buy Bitcoin. And during this time when I was saying this, the price was just rising like crazy, until it get to $1,000. And so I felt very, very confident in my pushing of the technology. I may have had some friends buy at $1,000, and then the price crashed and they sold at like 400. So they were a little upset about that. We're still friends, but needless to say, I kept pushing forward, and because I was so vocal about my love for Bitcoin, I ended up getting connected with my my soon-to-be partner, and basically we both were connected for our love of Bitcoin. And when we were connected, we were like, okay, what can we do with this technology that's not being addressed? And at the time, there were lots of wallets and lots of exchanges, but no one was really addressing the payroll issue with this technology. So we said, okay, let's be the first movers in this. And so when we first launched in July of 2014, that was when our first product launched. We were full-time on this. Before that, it was the way the solution worked is we would try to sign up companies who wanted to pay their employees in Bitcoin. And it turned out that there are a lot of companies, they don't really want to do this. They don't want to deal with Bitcoin. Companies don't want to deal with Bitcoin. They're thinking, how do I use this technology? What if I send the money to the wrong place? What are the other business implications of this? And what am I gaining from this? And when you think about the actual value that's being brought, it's that you're getting way better FX rates and the money is being delivered faster. And it turns out that the company doesn't really care about these things. This is really for the worker, because it's the workers who get screwed by the FX, the foreign exchange, and by the delays. And so there were plenty of people that wanted to receive wages in Bitcoin. And we thought, okay, how do we make it so that they can receive their wages in Bitcoin without their employer signing up? Which is when we realized that we can provide these collections accounts for users to be able to receive money from any client that pays them. And as a result, we now have workers getting paid by Google, Facebook, Yahoo, GE, Philips, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, Upwork, Freelancer, TopTal, all the
These
US
are all
Navy.
companies using Bitwage service.
What?
These are all the companies using Bitwage service to pay their employees.
So all these companies are paying through Bitwage, yes. But our customers are the workers, right? So we onboard the people who are receiving the funds, and they are working with these large corporations and organizations who will pay through us because it's simple, it's easy. And so we first started when we released that product as a domestic product in the US for people who wanted to look at Bitcoin as an investment. So they get like 10, 20, 50% of their wage in Bitcoin. And then people started using it internationally. And we realized that these people who were doing 100% of their wages in Bitcoin to get their money faster and cheaper, this is where we should be going. This is where we should be targeting. And so we spent a lot of time trying to figure out where should we target. The way that we did this is we partnered with exchanges all over the world, and we do co-marketing campaigns. And at one point, I was talking to one of our friends, Rodrigo Souza, who is part of Foxbit, one of the major Bitcoin exchanges in Brazil. We did a co-marketing campaign, and it was explosive, right? In one day, our user growth grew like 1%, and it led this one video that we did together led to $250,000 moving through the platform.
That's when I joined Bitwage.
Yeah, exactly. So we realized, wow, this is where we need to go. We should figure out why Brazil is such an interesting market, why people are using it. Turns out, I'm sure Fabiano mentioned when he was talking in Portuguese, although I'm not 100% sure because I couldn't understand. But it's because there's such long delays, up to 2 weeks on the payments to Brazil, and the fees can be up to 10%. And to just change that to a same next day process with fees, anywhere from 1% to better than the mid-market rates, right? People realize the value of this. And so we're like, okay, now I don't speak Portuguese and I don't know anything about Brazil. How do we go about entering this market? And again, our friend Rodrigo Souza connected us with Fabiano, and he's been pretty great in all his operations. And we started pushing through Brazil, and now Brazil is like half of our volume, and wow. That's basically a lot of Fabiano's doing. And we've done, just to put this into perspective, we've done $20 million of transactions to date. We've got almost 12,000 users now.
12,000 and 20 million transactions just today?
No. To date.
Ah, to date. Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, today that would be great. Gold is the money right now. Oh my god. Yeah, the chair would be made out of gold if that was the case. But yeah, no, I mean, it's still pretty good, pretty impressive. We're making revenue, and we're cash flow positive at this point. And interestingly, for improving this product, the next few upgrades that we're building out, we just released this in Europe, where you can have a unique IBAN number, bank account number, for each user. So instead of having like a pooled account, every single user who's receiving wages from European clients gets a unique number, which, the main value of this is that it helps with our matching system. And it basically means that there's less hassle to get the money to you, which means the money's going to get to you faster.
Just to emphasize this point, this is a problem of the legacy banking system.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a total problem of the legacy banking system. It's not really easy to offer this kind of service. And when you think about like why the cost and the delay are so high, in reality, a lot of it actually has to do with oligopolies that exist, right? There's only a few banks that have the power to do foreign exchange. And so they know that. And they're like, okay, well, if you're forced to go through me, I'm just going to take 5%, and just sort of laugh at you as they do it. And I think that these banks in the middle don't have the same incentives as the banks on the edge, because the banks on the edge, they want what's best for their clients, but the banks in the middle, they don't care. The banks in the middle can do whatever they want. And that's where you lose these inefficiencies. And with Bitcoin, essentially, you remove those middle intermediaries from the process, and that's where you get essentially this efficiency.
It's great. I mean, it's whenever I give talks here in Brazil, and I've given talks in the last 4 years, I know maybe over 50 talks already. And whenever I'm giving a talk, one of the first questions that I ask people when I'm discussing the legacy banking system is, has anybody here in the audience ever done a Forex transaction? I mean, sent money abroad? And some people raise their hands. And then I say, isn't this one of the worst experiences a human being can go by? Because it's a hassle. It takes a long time. I mean, if nothing goes wrong with the Swift message, because if you miss a space or you put an extra space, then your money can stay in the limbo for over a week or sometimes 3 weeks. And nobody in the bank here, the sending bank, nobody can say what's going wrong, what's gone wrong. And on the other hand, also nobody can say what's wrong with the message. And then you have no idea where your money is, because of all this hustle in the legacy banking system, the problem with the Swift messaging as well. And as you said, sometimes it costs over $50 to do any kind of sum, so any kind of transfer abroad. $50. It takes days, and it can take over a week. So it's a nightmare actually to send money abroad. It's a nightmare from any country to any country. It's a nightmare, especially if you're someone who has to receive some sporadic payments or has to send sporadic payments, and the volume are not so relevant.
And it's crazy, right? Because if you don't know how these international wires work, they go through this system called the correspondent banking system. So essentially, banks have bank accounts with each other, and they move money by moving money into one bank account into the correspondent account, and then the other bank sees that and then moves it to the next thing. And if you're going internationally, you basically have like 5-6 different banks, right? So you have 2 banks in the end. This bank knows that the money needs to get to the last bank, and the last bank knows that the money is coming from the first bank. But sometimes the banks on the edges won't know who are the intermediaries in the middle. And if there's an issue on the IBAN, this guy doesn't know where the money is. This guy doesn't know where the money is. And so they're like calling their partners, who have to then call their partners to figure out what the hell happened to the money. And you know, because of time differences, it's like a day to call one person, and then it's a voicemail, and they pick it up the next day, they call the next person. It's a total mess.
I had one of the worst experiences in my life. I used to live in Dubai. From 2008 to 2009, I lived in Dubai, so almost 2 years. And I left Dubai to go to Madrid in Spain to do an Austrian master's in economics, so Austrian economics master's. And almost all of my savings was in HSBC, and I had to transfer my savings to a Lloyd's bank account I opened up in Gibraltar. And because one of the guys in Dubai, the guys writing the message, he wrote something wrong. So one number was mistaken, one number of the IBAN number or the SWIFT code. I don't know. It was either the IBAN or the SWIFT code, but it was wrong anyway. And because, just as you said, because of the time differences, so Spain and Dubai, I think was 5 hour difference or 4 hour difference. My daily routine for the first 2 to 3 weeks was calling the guys back in HSBC in Dubai to understand what had gone wrong, and then calling the guys in Lloyd's Bank, and nobody could tell me what had gone wrong. It came to a point that all my emails exchange, I completely gave up, and I wrote everything in caps lock, so everything was caps locks, and I used for every single sentence over, I don't know, 10 or 20 exclamation points, because I was going insane. It was all my money that I had to live in Spain. I couldn't reach my money. It was terrible. So as I said, it's a complete mess.
And what's even worse is that, you know, if the systems are not automated enough, it might not even be your mistake, right? I mean, sometimes you might put in the IBAN number wrong. If you do that, I mean, you know, sometimes you have to live with the consequences. It's, you know, delay is better than not, you know, money going to the wrong place. But if you get it right and your banker puts it in wrong and you have to deal with a month delay, that's, you know, obviously there's something wrong with the system where the people who are servicing you, when they mess up, you lose a month of access to your money, and thus maybe the services that you needed to get with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So something you mentioned about during the past 3 years of track record in Bitwage, you mentioned that many large companies are already using the service. Perhaps they don't even know they are using it, but they are using Bitcoin in the end, like Google or who else you said a large company? So it was Google.
Yeah, so the Google, Facebook, Yahoo, right? But not just companies, right? You have like these government organizations, right? Like
this is something. Yeah, I mentioned to you prior to going live here. I mentioned to you I read something about the U.S. Marine Corps using Bitwage, and this is something that surprised me. And here just me perhaps divagating here. This is something that it's really amazing how when people will start knowing about Bitcoin, one of the first things they say, especially economists, but they say, well, nobody accepts Bitcoin, nobody's using Bitcoin, just a few people. And in the end, the reality today is that many more people and many more companies are using, in fact, Bitcoin than we actually realize. And in some cases, even the US government are using Bitcoin, and then perhaps they don't even realize. So if you can tell us about this case of the US Marine Corps using Bitcoin, it would be great.
I mean, it's pretty interesting, right? A lot of people often talk about, you know, in the future, there's going to be a world where Bitcoin is used underneath the scenes, and no one, and people may not even realize that it's the backbone to these payment systems. And I think that this is exactly what's happening in these scenarios where these large enterprises are getting the benefits of leveraging the benefits of Bitcoin without even realizing it. And why do they benefit? It's because they're doing a domestic transaction instead of an international one, and that to them does make a difference on a flat wire fee. Maybe not the FX, but the flat wire fee, right? International might be 50, domestic might be $3, right? Big difference there, especially when you're doing it in mass. But so how does it happen? How is it possible that these organizations are actually using us? Well, it all basically comes down to whether or not you can convince the company to pay into a domestic bank account instead of an international one. So if you like sort of sit back and think about the scenario of what's happening is, let's say you work at the U.S. Navy, and you know, you're stationed in Europe or Mexico or, you know, somewhere abroad, and instead of providing them with a European bank account, you provide them with a U.S. bank account, and that U.S. bank account for the Navy, they look at it and they're like, okay, I mean, there's nothing too wrong with this, so I'll pay into it, and it's easy. And then the money gets converted to Bitcoin, and then sends wherever it needs to be sent, sometimes converted back into local currency and deposited into bank accounts. Interestingly, there will sometimes be issues where when the person is telling the company. Okay, cool. So as I was saying, there's this interesting issue where when the worker goes to the company and they say, I'd like to get paid into this account, they might say something like, I'd like to get paid in my Bitcoin account. And if you say something like that, actually the organizations will be like, whoa, what? My Bitcoin? What are you talking about? And it becomes much more of a struggle. Versus if you just say, pay into my US account, you know, I have this account for collecting my funds. It's fairly easy and clockwork, and you can get basically anyone from a government organization like the United Nations to freelance marketplaces to enterprises. That's the beauty of the technology. Oh yeah. I don't understand why systems like this haven't been developed sooner, right? You'd think that you know, there are other fintech companies, right, like PayPal, right, that exist, but they require the person who's paying the money to sign up, and that's why you don't see, you know, these large companies like Google and Facebook and Yahoo signing up to this stuff, because their advantage is not high enough for moving to have to change their entire payment system or their entire payroll system. And that's why people don't get paid by like PayPal or TransferWise when they work for these companies. And so, you know, essentially what we've done is we've replicated the banking wire transfer model and then injected a Bitcoin transaction into the mix, which, you know, turns it from an ancient system to a modern one.
Perfect. But I want to ask you guys, why are you guys in Prague or in Europe? I think I hear you've been there for the last week or so, right?
Yeah. So to answer that, you got to take a step back and understand why we're in Europe. And this year I've been living here for maybe 2 months altogether now. And we have a base of operations in France currently. So I'm living in Paris. And the reason for this, we just received a grant from BPI France, which is basically a wholly owned investment bank, wholly owned by the French government. And so we got a grant from the French government essentially, and it was part of this competition called the French Tech Ticket. And so while we're here in Europe to expand our European operations and make it easier for people to receive money from Europe, which is important for Brazil and also important for like the Eastern Western European corridors, which we're breaking into, part of the reason why we're in Prague. But most interestingly to the French government is the connection between Francophone Africa and France. What we basically said is what we're doing in Latin America with like Brazil and Mexico and Argentina, with the United States, we want to replicate this model with France and Francophone Africa. So like Morocco, Mali, Senegal, Ivory Coast. And I think we see there's a big opportunity there. So as part of our expansion into Europe, we're based in Paris, and now we're in Prague because we're also looking to do the Eastern Western corridor, right, between like Czech Republic, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, with Western Europe. And so we're here at a conference, which I just spoke at. I had a 20-minute presentation, and Fabiano and I were both there, building relationships across the eastern borders of Europe.
That's great. I mean, first of all, congratulations for the grant, for winning this grant. It's really amazing, and to see the company evolving, progressing, and have this kind of incentive. This is really spectacular. Just congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And let me ask you something. What's your vision for the future? So how it's always a tough question to ask, but I think it's worth trying to dwell on it and trying to reflect on this. But what's your vision for the future? How do you see the company in the next years? Is there any major plan or something that you can tell us here, if it's not something confidential yet?
Yeah. So I can tell you sort of where our minds are at. And there hasn't been really final decisions on the tactics per se, but the strategy is there. And basically the idea is right now we work with workers, freelancers, dev shops, services companies who are working with clients across borders. And so this puts us in a very unique position because we have a lot of knowledge, not just in payments, but in worker company relationships. And there's two ways that one can go about this, right? One is you can become a general Bitcoin payment play, right? And start doing remittances and other kinds of payments like that. And that's not actually the route that we want to go. And the reason why is because there are plenty of other companies that are tackling that issue, versus for us, we tackle international payments through a wage, and we do it through these collections accounts. We want to be able to use the competitive advantages that we've built around this and around the customer bases that we've built. And we're realizing that if we build value for our customer base, more value, then we can make the product really spectacular and strong. And so we were thinking, okay, so payments is obviously one of the biggest issues that people have, but where else does a worker have issues? And we're realizing that it has to do with work and finding work, getting work, And so the idea is that we want to help build a platform that will help the workers actually get work. So you almost have like a one-stop shop for obtaining quality work and getting paid for that work faster and cheaper than you ever can before. And so there's several ways that we're looking about doing this. One that we're looking at it is through payment reputation. So by getting paid through our service, there's basically statistics around you as a worker. And so the idea is that we can help vet workers based off of these statistics, determine who are sort of like the creme of the crop, and then work with these creme of the crop to get them jobs with companies through our connections in Silicon Valley and Paris.
Yeah, like recently we had in Brazil, like Fernando is aware that case of a person was doing personal marketing, and then she would say on TV that she worked for Google, and then in the end they found out that she had just an internship, summer internship, not even paid. So she didn't really work for Google, and like with platforms like ours that she could prove if that was true, like her level of relationship with the company she worked for.
So this is I'd say a grand vision or a bolder vision for the company, right?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty. I think it's pretty big because I think that helping workers to actually find work, especially across borders, is a really large issue. The two main issues that you have to get across when doing cross-border work is besides payments, besides figuring out the payment situation, is around language and is around the trust of actually being able to get a company to trust you, right? And so we're hoping to solve all three of these. We've solved the payments issue, and then we can solve the language issue by basically being the front end to the companies in Silicon Valley and in Paris that we're connecting with, connecting you with. And then we also solve the trust issue through this sort of objective payment reputation system that we've built for our platform.
I mean, that's great, really. I hope you guys can achieve this, and I can only wish you the best. And hopefully we can see a much bigger Bitwage company in the future. And perhaps one just final issue we can discuss, and I know this is a thorny issue in the Bitcoin space. It's about scalability, but I just want to investigate and to understand, not trying to put any of you guys on either position, because there's no really clear position. You have a spectrum and different statements and positions. But anyway, how has the scalability issue affected the company in the past months? Because as we see, Bitcoin has never been more successful than right now. I mean, the traffic of the number of transactions, daily transactions, is exploding. It's over 300,000 per day. It's really a sign of success. Some people say now it's dead. I think it's very opposite. I mean, it's amazing that it's being used that much as it is right now. But of course, it has consequences in the near term. I'd like to know how the current situation of Bitcoin, this congested traffic, I'd say, how is this affecting the business and the remittances and the payments that you guys do?
Sure. So before getting into the bad, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about the good of it. And the good of it, as you were talking about, has to do with the fact that now there's the price is higher, there's much more usage, much more liquidity. And so why is this better? Well, with the price higher and more liquidity, basically more people transacting all over the world, this means that we can basically get better rates, and we're able to do higher volume transactions. So the volume is actually better because of all of this volume that and all this trading that's going on, and all the new users that have been coming to the platform. So in that regard, it's great for business, and I want more scalability issues because of it. Or rather, I want more scalability issues as a result of more users coming. But where the issues come in now, it's not actually the issue that you might think, right? The issue that you might think is, okay, well, Bitwage is paying workers all over the world, and so it must cost a lot to pay all of them. That's actually not really the issue, because we essentially do transactions once a day, and we do like a big transaction. So it's actually, you're moving a lot of money for a very small fee because you're just doing one very large transaction. It's not like we're doing tons of small transactions over and over and over again. So the fee itself is not that big of an issue, and it's a good trade-off for the more the higher volume that we can now do. But I'd say that the biggest issue has to do with partners that we work with. So if a partner that we work with doesn't put in the correct transaction fee, what will sometimes happen is there'll be a delay in the Bitcoins getting to us, and that's probably the worst issue, because we want to just go from fiat to Bitcoin to either fiat or like into your wallet like as soon as possible. Like if we can do this like near instantly, like we'll do it, and we often do. But I'd say that there have been two cases since the scalability problem has been coming up where it's actually delayed the payroll transactions. Luckily, these are issues that the exchanges figure out and they deal with, right? It's not you might mess up getting the transaction fees, one day, but you'll realize you've messed that up because customers are complaining, organizations like us are complaining, and they get it fixed. So it's not hurting us too much right now. Perhaps if there was no scalability fix in like 2 years, and then like the price for us to do the bulk payment has like you know, gone up by a factor of 5 or 10, you know, then it might start being an issue on our end. But of course, personally, it's an issue because I used to like the concept of, you know, paying for dinner with Bitcoin. I don't want to pay $1. Yeah. Well, that's basically what I said.
Being that, you know, if it's really up to that value that you have to pay for minor fees, eventually people that do small transactions like will feel like it's not a, you know, a good way. So you know, in micro payments and Bitcoin will be like totally separate things at this point.
So I know you use the debit card on our platform. Do you think that the scalability issue has been affecting you, or how's that been with our debit card?
It does affect, you know, worse than before. It's usually 44 cents they take.
Okay.
So if I want to move like $20, paying 44 cents is really not hurting. But as it grows, it will at some point.
Yeah. But actually, so interestingly, I know. So I have friends over at Lightning. Have you know Lightning?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So so there's two members that I know. Elizabeth Stark, who runs Lightning Labs. She's sort of she's not the face, I guess, but she helps like raise funds and do all the business development. She's great. She's awesome. Really good person. And actually, I went to college with this guy named Lalu, who his tag on the internet is roast beef. I don't know if you've heard of roast beef before. But
I have. I know the word, but I haven't know the guy roast beef.
Look up the Redditor and the tweeter roast beef, and you'll find him. He's like the most vocal developer. He's one of the top developers at Lightning, and they're actually really close to launching. And I think very soon they're going to launch Lightning on Litecoin. And so that's gonna be pretty exciting. I think that's gonna solve a lot of issues when that eventually gets ported over to Bitcoin, however long that takes. And it's pretty exciting. And I'm also excited about the price increase when that happens too.
All right. Well, we could stay another hour discussing about the scalability issues, but anyway, I just want to hear, guys, how this can affect or is affecting your business. But well, I think we can start concluding this hangout. And first of all, just let me say once again, thank you guys for your time, for accepting this invitation so we can have this discussion here. It was very, I think, productive. And congratulations again for the award and for the grants and for all the progress that Bitwage has done. It's been, I think, one of the great companies that we have in the ecosystem. It's really great to have you guys. And I don't know if you want to add something else, please feel free.
Well, I would add that, like, if you do remote work and need to receive payments from abroad, like, Bitwage is the fastest and the cheapest way to receive your payments. And like, keep checking for oops, and you
can say if you want to say in Portuguese, don't worry, you can say in Portuguese as well.
In Portuguese you prefer?
Yeah. No, perhaps your final words you can say in Portuguese.
Talvez. Então, a gente está, como a gente falou aqui, Fernanda, consolidando como uma ferramenta de auxílio ao profissional remoto. Que tem muito profissional hoje no Brasil que tem nível para trabalhar, que tem como trabalhar a nível global, não o faz, às vezes pela barreira da língua, muitas vezes por incapacidade, algumas só por insegurança. Tem uma série de trabalhos, além do que a gente está realizando, que vai ajudar o profissional a levar. Eu creio que o mercado nacional só se favorece com isso, só se favorece com mais gente com experiência de nível global para trazer. Morando aqui, trabalhando para lá, inevitavelmente contribui para a economia e para o nível intelectual do trabalho executado aqui. Então, isso aí me deixa muito feliz, muito realizado de saber que eu estou, de fato, trazendo uma contribuição e ajudando até na distribuição de renda, porque o que antes se gastava em taxas para receber esse valor, hoje fica na mão do profissional, ou seja, vai para o comércio.
Verdade.
Né? Então, acho que é isso. Eu acho que quanto mais gente aderir ao sistema, por isso que eu sou realizado, sou feliz com o que eu faço, porque eu sei que eu estou ajudando as pessoas, que eu estou agregando valor em operação, que eu estou, de fato, solucionando um problema, usando a ferramenta da melhor forma possível para solucionar um problema que antes era um bicho de 7 cabeças, que nem se mencionou, e hoje é uma conta pela internet, 2 dias de aprovação.
Muito bom. Jonathan?
Yeah, I guess, thank you for having us on the show. We're very happy to be here as well. I guess, some logistics, right? If you want to find our website, it's www.bitwage.com. We're running the ones with the .com, not a .io or a .co or any of that other stuff. And actually, we have a bitwage.com .br as well. So, go check it out. We've got awesome customer support. You'll see this guy talking to you over the line. He's got a pretty face. Come check us out. We're happy to work with everyone.
Great. So again, thank you guys, and I wish you all the best. E então, só para acabar, eu vou botar depois na descrição do vídeo, tem todos os links aqui para quem quiser saber mais informações, o bitwage.com.br e mais outros artigos ou fontes que sejam bastante interessantes aqui e pertinentes para esse show. Então, mais uma vez, obrigado e espero que tenham gostado dessa conversa. Até a próxima.
Obrigado.